All right. So, as the title suggests, we're actually going to be talking about a person named Eli Egnar Sargon. I'm going to refer to him as Eli. I can't. I'm going to refer to him as Eli from here on out. So, I got quite a bit of news for you. Let's go. So, the Bircham founder promoted racial slur using pro circumcision organization. So, the intactivist Eli is teaming up with circumcision choice, it sounds like, in order to accuse intactivists of anti Semitism. And if you read this article and you scroll down, it seems that Circumcision Choice has favorably cited hit pieces against Brendan Morata by Bircham Beyond the Brie and individuals associated with them. Brendan has suggested that Bircham's association with Circumcision Choice discredits their attack on the intactivist movement. How am I supposed to take Jewish claims about anti-Semitism seriously when they cite as experts on anti-racism targeting me with racial slurs? Brendan writes, this kind of abuse is wrong. It also kind of seems pretty hypocritical. And what did they actually say? So I'm not going to say the word here, but Circumcision Choice accused Morata of this right here. I highlighted it. I'm not going to say it on YouTube. I'm not trying to get censored. But yes, so that is what they called him. And that's what his response to Brendan after he wrote that Jewish men have the right to share their feelings against circumcision. That doesn't seem too bad to me. I don't know if that sounds bad to you. I don't think that sounds horrible. I don't know. I'll let you guys let me know. So, moving on. So, Eli went as far as calling intactivist leader Brendan a racial separatist. In a hit piece on the intactivist movement for Jew School titled How to De-Radicalize a Movement, Eli calls American circumcision filmmaker Brendan a racial separatist. This is despite the fact that who he married is a Native American woman. The only evidence Eli provides for these extreme views on race is that Brendan appeared on Stefan Molyneux free domain radio show to promote his film. Stefan is a long-standing opponent of circumcision with Jewish heritage who has featured multiple intactivists on his show. Eli attacks Molyneux as a eugenist, and I'm not saying that. I feel like that's going to ban me too. A claim that Molyneux has denied, and insinuates that Brendan's appearance on the show is about those views rather than their shared opposition to circumcision. Prior to Eli publicly attacking him, Brendan published an article on his own site titled Bircham's Founders Have Been Engaged in a Slander Campaign Against Me, that states that Eli has been engaged in an over half-decade-long harassment and slander campaign against me. Brendan's article described a series of secret meetings Eli had with intactivist leadership in an attempt to sabotage Brendan's documentary, American Circumcision. During these meetings, Eli had made false claims intending to harm Brendan's reputation. So obviously there's some back and forth between Brendan and Eli obviously they do not get along very well, which is very interesting as we continue on reading some of these. All right. Intact America speaker. Guess which Intact America speaker that would be? Eli? You guessed it. Yes, Eli. Eli says Intact America is responsible for anti-Semitism in the intactivist movement. Intact America speaker Eli claims a 2014 speech by Intact America director Jorgen led to anti-Semitism in the intactivist movement. There is a lot of claims and accusations by this guy named Eli. Ilya? Wow. Ilya. I guess his name's Ilya. My apologies. Wait, one. Did he just mistype that? I think he mistyped it. It's Eli. It's definitely Eli. Yeah, what? Eli. Okay, so, hey, you got a typo right there. You might want to fix that. Eli. Yep, still same guy, Eli. In an article, Jew School, Eli claims that Chapin's Jorgen speech, whose political correctness, changing language, viewpoints, and tactics in today's intactivist movement at the 13th International Symposium on Genital Autonomy and Children's Rights set the stage for intactivist movement to be taken over by the alt-right. Eli connects his speech to the rise of not saying that word, the online image board 4chan, and alt-right leader Richard by suggesting that intactivist movement is full of white aggrieved men who have always been the bullseye for fascists. He suggests that Chapin's speech contributed to a process radicalization of the movement. Eli has made similar allegations in the past. In a Dazed Digital article on the intactivist movement titled How Intactivists' Anti-Circumcision Movement Was Co-opted by the Alt-Right. I don't know why he changed his name spelling here. Eli cites Chapin's 2014 speech as well. In an interview with The Guardian, Eli states that the leadership of the intactivist movement is alt-right over video of an Intact America sign. Intact America responded to these accusations by inviting Eli to speak at their Intact 2022 conference, which took place just months after Eli published his article attacking them, which is pretty amazing if you think about it, because the Intact America is opening up communication. That's good. I think that's what we should be doing, opening up communication. I think that is what we should be doing, and I think that is good to have, face-to-face conversations. I think that definitely helps. But, that's good. Eric Klopper was banned from presenting at Intact 2022. Wow. Sources report that Eric was silenced by this man named Eli. Again, same guy. And this time they're spelling it E-L-I, not E-I-L. So Eli. Okay. So lots of you guys know Eric. I will go deeper on that later. So if you go down here, though, other intactivists paint a darker picture. Eli has threatened negative media attention in the past, said one activist who wished to remain anonymous, fearing retaliation. Everyone is terrified of him. Eric knew he had to submit or be kicked out of the movement. He practically begged Eli for mercy. Pretty ominous. That's pretty ominous. That's pretty bad. Both Klopper and Hammond did not clarify exactly what inaccurate perceptions had been cleared up, or whether or not Klopper's performance was still considered anti-Semitic, according to Burchim's public statement. So if you read this article, I'm gonna summarize it. So Eric was banned, right, from speaking and being present at Intact America. He showed up anyways, and after he showed up anyways, Eli and Eric were talking, and they actually made a video in which we're gonna go and talk about. So here we go. So this is, if you don't know who Eric is, I'm gonna show you a really quick film. Alright guys, we're gonna go watch this really fast. It's on 1.75 speed, so it's gonna go by pretty fast, but just to get the gist of all what Eric Klopper has done.
I'm Eric Klopper, and I'm here today to make an exciting announcement. But before I do that, I need to give you a little background, catch you up on what has occurred. So, for those of you who don't know, I put on a play called Sex and Circumcision, an American Love Story at Harvard University. Now, as an employee at the time, the play incorporated inflatable love dolls and penises, the whole 9 yards. My argument was I relied on Harvard's free expression policy, they terminated me, so on. Now, I filed suit against Harvard, and the first judge granted Harvard's motion to dismiss before I was even able to file an opposition or explain where Harvard may be misleading. And even more...
Keep note of that free speech policy for later.
Egregious, the first judge dismissed my case before a certain minimum amount of time had elapsed for me to amend my complaint, which essentially just means revise my arguments to show up its weaknesses, and that is a right afforded to every litigant. So I appealed my case to the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and 20 months later, after routing my appeal to the frivolous bucket, the 3 panel judges on the First Circuit Court of Appeals dismissed the case without Harvard even having to brief any of the issues, or my lawyers having the right to oral argument. After that, my lawyers and I filed an en banc appeal, which means we asked all of the judges of the First Circuit to review that dismissal. And surprisingly, the First Circuit actually sent the case back to those same 3 judges, and unsurprisingly, those same 3 judges held that they were absolutely correct the first time. Now, this is actually great news.
Alright, so obviously you can see here that Eric has been having issues with the justice system with his claims, obviously. And I think that's just a fact. Like, he just said that, the legal system is ignoring what should be investigated. They're just ignoring his pleas, essentially. And this was 2 months ago. This was only 2 months ago that he put this out. So he's appealing to the Supreme Court. If you want to know how long it's been since he made Sex and Circumcision an American Love Story, it's been about 5 years. He's been fighting this for 5 years. So that's how long he's been trying to fight this. Right. So 6 days ago, this was released. Eli and Eric. Keep in mind, Eric is supposed to be going to the Supreme Court, but this came out. So let's watch this.
I've known of Eli for almost 10 years, but the only real interaction I had with him was following my 2018 play at Harvard.
I first became aware of Eric Klopper in the spring of 2018 in the lead up to his one-man play Sex and Circumcision, and my heart sank when I saw the play because it represented a kind of more
Alright, so before we continue, I want you to understand that everything in here has a reason. So I've noticed that Eric Klopper was preparing coffee, right? So that was on purpose, right? He was preparing coffee, which is probably more like energetic, rambunctious, more, yeah. And Eli was preparing tea, which is more wise and calming, and I don't know if you noticed their books. You can see right there, Eli has the Books of Jacob by Olga, right? And if you go back to Eric Klopper, he has the let's go back. He has the book Joseph Campbell, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. So here we go. Alright, so I looked up The Hero with 1,000 Faces. This is what Eric Klopper was reading. The Hero with a Thousand Faces has influenced millions of readers by combining insights of modern psychology with Joseph Campbell's revolutionary understanding of comparative mythology in these pages. Campbell outlines the hero's journey, a universal motif of adventure and transformation that runs through virtually all of the world's mythic traditions. He also explores the cosmogonic cycle, the mythic pattern of the world creation and destruction. So this is what Eric Klopper's reading. Tell me what you think it means. And Eli, or Ellie, his name's Ellie. Ellie, yeah, obviously I haven't pre-did this at all. So Ellie's reading The Books of Jacob by Olga Tokarzuk. Set in the mid-18th century, The Books of Jacob is about a charismatic self-proclaimed Messiah, Jacob Frank, a young Jew who travels through the Habsburg and Ottoman empires, attracting and repelling crowds and authorities in equal measure. So, tell me what you think that means in this little YouTube video, because I picked those books on purpose. So comment down below what you guys think of that. All right, back to what we're doing.
Kind of more brash and angry form of expression and activism. And Sex and Circumcision actually crossed a number of red lines for me. And so I wrote a full-on critique of Eric's play.
The play had both positive and negative reviews. His was exclusively negative. I immediately thought, oh, this is an opponent of mine and there's no common ground and we're gonna have to move forward without him.
It wasn't until the summer of 2022 at the Intact 2022 conference in Atlanta that we met in person, and things changed.
Yeah, so this was the Intact America 2022 where Eric Klopper was not supposed to be, and he came anyways, and other people are saying that, hey, Eli tried to get him kicked out. They admitted that point, and I think that's a good point to have. But I guess that would just be bad showmanship. Also, I don't know if you recognized this, but back here, Ellie, he had a Bernie Sanders t-shirt on. Like, look at how Eric Klopper was dressed. Eric Klopper was dressed in a wife beater, right? Like, unkempt, unruly, no sleeves. And Eli was dressed in a shirt, but he was wearing a Bernie Sanders t-shirt. He picked that shirt on purpose. Like, all of this was done on purpose. Like, you don't do a video like this unless you plan out everything, right? And I guess that Ellie is A-okay with promoting his political beliefs on a film like this. I don't know what your opinion is. Let me know.
Welcome to LA, and thank you for having me over.
Oh, well, I'm happy to have you here, Ellie, which may be surprising for some people to hear because at least publicly we have not had the most amicable history. But we're here because we have far more in common than we disagree on, and we are here to kind of clear the air.
Absolutely, and I wanted also to talk a little bit about how we changed the way we thought about each other, because I think
So I also apologize for the lag on this as well. Obviously, the audio is not synced up completely with the video.
I think that's like the really interesting part of the story that people might not know. So I think a lot of people know that we've had a kind of back and forth online where I've been very critical of your work and you've been critical of my approach, and something changed and we actually first met in person in the airport at baggage claim in Atlanta.
Yes.
And I have to give you more credit for recognizing me than we recognized each other at the same time, but you get more credit because I was wearing a massive N95.
Yes.
I was relying on my hearing, and I recognized that voice. I was like, that's Eric Klopper. But you saw.
So, once again, you're hearing Ellie saying, "Oh, I had an N95 mask in the airport. I follow all the rules. I play it safe," right? And Eric, I guess, wasn't wearing a mask at the airport. Or maybe he was, but just not as safe as Ellie was. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. Also, them recognizing them has nothing to do with anything in this conversation either, which I don't know why they're even bringing it up. I think they're trying to make light of it.
A guy roughly Ellie shaped in an N95, and you knew it was me. So credit where credit is due.
Thank you.
But that's where we first met in person, and my expectations of who you were as a person were completely subverted by meeting you in person. And
Well, this is probably a good thing, considering where we were starting.
yeah, absolutely. But I had this sense also that my impression of you from all of our back and forth online, first of all, was inaccurate and maybe not even relevant anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually sat down and had a conversation at the conference, and that that suspicion was justified after that conversation. So maybe you can tell me a little bit from your perspective what changed in how you thought.
So, hold on a second. So, Ellie had a suspicion that Eric Klopper wasn't this horrible guy. Look at how fast Ellie was changing his mind about Eric just at the airport. So much for his die-hard convictions that, oh, maybe our past views were different, right? But yet he bans him. Once again, this conversation would never have happened if censorship was a thing and they just banned Eric from coming to Intact America.
About me, and then we can talk a little bit about where we're going to go from here.
Well, I think the important thing is when you disagree with somebody.
Notice how Ellie is also controlling this conversation. Like, he's telling Eric, hey, now you can go speak. I find this very interesting. I don't think Eric is that kind of person, especially having like a lawyer background, that he would just sit back and, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into this.
It's easy to latch on where you disagree, whereas, certainly as I get older too, I think what's more important and what's more productive is where do you agree? Like, where's the common ground? And when we talk in person, because online it's like, okay, where's the conflict, right? But in person it's like, well, where can we build together? And at the end of the day, when we spoke together, we're actually very aligned in that we are opposed to genital mutilation. We are opposed to anti-Semitism. We're opposed to white nationalism. We're opposed to these ideas and ideologies that promote violence and harm children, right?
Absolutely.
And so when we sit down and we talk about,
all right, so they're opposed to ideologies that harm children. I'm just gonna place some Old Testament verses up here that promote what they don't want promoted, because I just feel like we're being lied to right now. I feel like there's a bunch of things in the Old Testament that are not what they're trying to say. Like, they're saying one thing, but then they're also agreeing with an ideology that says something completely different. At least that's what these verses are going to say. And you can disagree with me. That's A-okay. I'd love to hear it. I'm not going to speak on this anymore. I'm just going to keep on going.
Where do we agree? It's actually there's far more overlap than where we disagree. And, my thinking and approach has certainly changed with time as well. It's from being a young man to being an older man, right? I mean, we don't have to say specific
Younger
ages.
than me.
Yeah. Well, that's how time works as far as we're aware. But so I think that it is important for us, because we've both contributed to the movement in different ways, and we may have qualms with each other or had qualms, and that's fine, is to affirm our principles, which is, no, we are moving forward together to do what is most effective to protect the children. And I am aware that not all of my comments in a play that had 7-foot inflatable penises and inflatable love dolls and full frontal nudity and, emotional outbursts directed towards my father, not all of that was politically tactful or helpful. And
You were really holding back in that.
yeah, that was the PG version. No, that was an expression of how I was feeling at the time, and I was angry, and that can manifest itself in comments that are actually detrimental to our shared goal of protecting children from genital mutilation.
Yeah, and I mean, my concern for the last 10 years, and I've been very public about this, has been a kind of lack of discipline in the movement around issues having to do with various forms of hate speech. Mm-hmm. And so when we met in Atlanta, and you said to me, Ellie...
So he's upset about hate speech in the movement, which I feel like that's a slippery slope, right? Like, as a content creator, we have to not say hate speech, but that's not very clearly defined, right? And I almost guarantee you that they're not going to define what anti-Semitism is, or if they're going to define, like, if it's there against a religion or race, they're not going to define that. They're just going to leave it very vague on purpose, because I bet you they don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I could be wrong.
I really don't want to be intentionally or unintentionally anti-Semitic. It was a big kind of mind-blown moment for me, because it was like, well, then what are we talking about even? Because but what's our beef about? Because honestly, that's all that's the bottom line for me. I heard those words from you, and I was like, oh, this guy's serious.
So that's the bottom line from Ellie. Like, he cares about hate speech. He cares about that. He cares about, which is interesting. He's an activist, but he seems more concerned with his religion and personal beliefs than intactivists. Which, I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what his bottom line is, right? Bottom line is the hate speech. And maybe I'm misreading this. Maybe he's talking about that's the issue with Eric, was the bottom line was the hate speech part.
And not only is he serious, he understands the harm and the potential harm that can come from this kind of speech and tolerating this kind of speech in the movement. So at that point, I was just like...
What kind of harm? Like, can you give me an example of what type of harm, Ellie? Like, I'm sorry. Like, you can't just say things with no evidence and just be like, oh, you understand what kind of harm can come from this. Okay.
Okay, I guess Eric Klopper is based, and I don't know where that leaves us, but I think we can work together.
Yeah, and I'm excited to work with you. I think we can produce a lot of good, and it will make people feel better that the people who have put a lot on the line for this are working together to do what is most effective. I look forward to future works. This is just the beginning, but Ellie, to many good years ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you've spent any amount of time or effort in the fight against hate speech, especially in...
All right. So remember, Eric Klopper was literally going to the Supreme Court to fight for his freedom of speech. He was going to the Supreme Court to fight literally for his freedom of speech. And now he's joining the fight against hate speech? That seems off. I don't know, I could be wrong, but that seems off.
Online spaces, it can be really easy to slip into a kind of jaded perspective. You're just constantly being bombarded by bad faith actors. But I think especially in these spaces, it's
Who are these bad faith actors, Ellie? Like, who are they? You're saying that we personally are getting constantly bombarded by bad faith actors. Are you the judge? Is Ellie the judge? Like, who made him the judge of any of this? I'm just confused. It just seems to me that this man has been just taking this role of being the judge and calling people anti-Semitic. And is that not a type of hate speech or misinformation? Because he thought Eric was anti-Semitic, and turns out he wasn't anti-Semitic. So what is that? Misinformation? Should we censor Eli now forever? Because it seems like he's accusing everybody. Is he like the girl that claims rape and blames the quarterback and finds out in court that she was too drunk to know that it was the janitor? Like, where do we go from here? Like, I don't know. This seems like a horrible thing that Ellie just went ahead and accused Eric of something that he's not even, and almost got him banned from Intact America. And no one is saying, hey, Ellie, what are you doing? Like, what you doing, man? Like, you can't be doing this. You can't be throwing around words and accusing people without evidence, because we live in America where you're innocent until proven guilty. Why is this not being discussed? Why? I don't know. Please, somebody tell me if I'm wrong with my thinking right now.
Really important to leave the door open for people who in the past may not have been perfect, but have demonstrated a desire to do better going forward.
At the end of the day, I unequivocally.
So when those people that upset you, when they demonstrate that they want to talk to you, then you can accept them. Yeah, because, those bad people, you should let them come to you. You shouldn't put the effort in to go to them. No. You should wait for them to come to you. I think that's what Ellie just said. And keep in mind that this was pre-recorded, right? They pre-recorded this. They thought out every line very well. This recording was not very well thought out. This is just my thoughts. I was calling Eli, so I had his name wrong. So this is just me and my opinion, right? But these guys sat down and they thought about everything they were going to say. And Eli literally just told us, hey, when somebody, asks for forgiveness, you should go and accept their forgiveness. But doesn't push it like, hey, maybe you should go. Maybe you should start that conversation. Hey, maybe instead of banning words, maybe you should have a conversation. Maybe, I don't know, maybe instead of trying to get people not to go to places, you talk to them, you invite them in. Like Intact America did Ellie. Intact America invited Ellie, right? Ellie got Eric banned. You see the difference? You see the difference how communication can work better? Guys, let me know at the bottom what you think. Okay, in the comments, let me know.
Typically denounce anti-Semitism, and we need to do that together as a movement, and we need to embrace Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, you name it. We need to embrace.
So I would like it if we embraced our religious friends, right? So that would be nice. I'm not going to say you need to do anything because, once again, freedom. So I'm not going to, I'll let you have your freedom to make your choice. So another thing is, are you an intactivist first, or are you your religion first? Where do we draw the line? Like, if your religion promotes murdering people, do we say that's okay? That's your religion? Same thing with circumcision. Like, do we say, oh, that's okay, that's your religion? Like, where do you draw the line? Where does Ellie draw the line?
Religious friends and make them feel welcome to helping us protect all children.
Guys, that's all what I have for the day. Let me know what you think. Let me know that leftist representatives like Bernie Sanders if that's a good idea, especially when you're trying to prove that there's a bunch of alt-right people in the movement of intactivism, if that was a good idea, because if you're alt-left, a lot of normal people will seem alt-right. Let me know if you think banning people from events, from threatening and harassing and making false accusations would be considered a type of hate speech that we should deal with. Let me know if you think Ellie is a hypocrite or a savior. Let me know what you think of Ellie. Also, if Ellie wants to come on and have an open conversation with me and be interviewed, I'm down for it. I love knowing what other people think, right? And I want to know what you guys think. Comment down below. Also, I would like to thank Conte News. Conte News is where I got most of this content from. And also, I would like to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe.